What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of our NBA DFS DraftKings Picks videos, this time for Wednesday, February 9th. I'm your host, Justin Bales, joined by Max over here. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Sweating this Tuesday slate still, but let's move on to Wednesday.
A little bit bigger of a Tuesday slate. On Monday, we had, 6 games, I think?
Yeah, the league's doing a good job the last week or two of spreading these games out. So I love when we get like 4 or 5 to 10 game slates. Somewhere between those numbers I like.
Yeah, it's much better than last night was 10. Tonight, again, is 6, which is very reasonable. The only weird thing that I really thought that the NBA was doing was like they had the consistent weeks for a while where they were playing like 2 games on a Thursday, and now
Yeah.
they have the trade deadline on a Thursday and there's like 8 games. Why not just make 2? And
that Thursday slate could be one of the most wild slate. That might be like a COVID type slate, like when we were having all the COVID people getting rolled out. Yeah, that Thursday slate, you could just have people dropping right before games, sitting out because they're traded.
It's crazy. It goes back to last night. You know, you had Sabonis traded for Halliburton with a bunch of other guys in that deal. You had what was the other major trade that happened?
Who else got traded? I'm drawing a blank on it.
Yeah, I'm also drawing a blank here. That was the second CJ McCollum trade.
That felt like a really long time ago, even though it happened earlier.
Literally this morning as we're recording this. This recorded the night before. That trade happened this morning, and it feels like it was like 2-3 weeks ago.
I know, so much news came through.
So
yeah, that CJ McCollum trade made no sense either to me, but I don't see why New Orleans. I don't know why the Pelicans would really want him, like an aging CJ McCollum. I don't know.
I think they're looking to make a push this year, and I think they wanted a different playmaker besides Devontae Graham.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it works.
Yeah. I just don't think they're that close to being good. I guess maybe if Zion's healthy,
I feel like they're one of those teams that's like they've been like bad for so long that they are sniffing the playoffs and they're like, we got to get in. Let's do whatever it takes to get in.
Yeah. But I think that McCollum contract is big. Like he has a huge contract. So
they might be going all out this year for him. Josh Hart, who's super cheap and very good for his price.
Hart's cheap, yeah.
Alexander Walker, too, looks like he's going to be very good. Like, I feel like we have the exact same situation of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which is hilarious that they're actually related. And you're putting them in the same thing. But remember when Shai got traded from the Clippers after he looked really good and then just completely broke out with the Thunder?
Yeah. Yeah, I could see. Similar. I mean, I think Portland got some good young value. Yeah, Alexander Walker, I mean, it looks like Portland might kind of start to rebuild. We'll see what they do with Lillard before the Thursday deadline.
That's such a weird thing. They said they're going to build around Lillard again, which makes no sense since Anthony Simons, Damian Lillard, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker aren't going to be able to play together anyway.
Yeah.
So like, what was the point?
Why build around? Like, why trade CJ McCollum if you're just going to keep Dame? Like, I don't know. It just seems weird. Because Dame's not going to want to go through a rebuild. So
I've 100% on board with that too. It doesn't make any sense, but it's I don't know. That's what they said today.
Yeah.
We'll see. Before we get into everything, if you enjoy the video, go ahead, give us a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications if you don't ever want to miss a video. Also, drop any comments that you have below. We'll start out real quick with the injury news. We have Lonnie Walker and Trey Jones both questionable for San Antonio. Also, major point of emphasis is Thad Young is going to get traded. When it happens, no one knows. So could be before this game and he could get ruled out. So also something to kind of keep an eye on. Lauri Markkanen out for Cleveland. Darius Garland is questionable, but Karis LeVert will play, who obviously they just traded for him the other day. Ayo Dosunmu is out with a concussion for Chicago. You have Jalen McDaniels and Cody Martin, along with Gordon Hayward, who has now been announced that he's going to miss quite a bit of time, all of them are out. James Bouknight is doubtful to play. Goran Dragic out for Toronto. Aaron Wiggins, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Isaiah Roby, all out for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Josh Giddey is on they said a hard cap at 30 minutes. So probably just want to avoid Josh Giddey for the time being. I think he's a little bit expensive for 30 minutes, I guess. He kind of needs the higher 30s for that. But important to note that Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, and Nemanja Bjelica all ruled out. Kevon Looney is questionable on the opposite side. Rudy Gobert has already been ruled out, and Rudy Gay is questionable. Dwight Howard, I believe, was ruled out last night, but is questionable to play tonight. Carmelo Anthony also ruled out last night. He's out for at least 2 more games, I believe. You have the guys that got traded to Portland. I don't know. I'm assuming they're going to play. But you have Josh Hart, Tomas Satoransky, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, all questionable, I guess. And then last night, Eric Bledsoe, who also got traded prior to that in the Norman Powell trade, he didn't play for Portland. He's questionable to play tonight. So we'll kind of see what happens with all of that. And then Sacramento, you have just the guys that got traded there. They haven't been announced officially as playing, but Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and then Marvin Bagley is questionable. But again, that's a guy that you would have to anticipate is on the move. But who knows when that's actually going to happen. So he's questionable for this game, and we'll kind of see how that plays out. Shifting into the actual 6-game slate, starting at point guard, what are you looking at here, Max?
Yeah, just in general on the slate. So I was looking, there's 6 games and 3 of the games are starting at 10 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. So you're probably going to have a chance to late swap after the first 3 games. So just something to keep in mind. There are a bunch of teams in those late games on the second night of back-to-backs. So something to just keep in the back of your head that we could get some people sitting for those 10 o'clock games after lock. But at point guard, the high end, there's a lot of pretty good options. I like LeBron if he plays. Their Lakers are getting Portland, and LeBron in his first game back from injury played, I think, close to 40 minutes. So there's obviously not a minutes cap, and the Lakers are kind of they need to get wins right now. They're on the playoff bubble. So against Portland, I like LeBron at 10,800 as probably the best spend up option on the slate in my eyes. And then you also have some DeJounte Murray at 10,600. He is getting priced up a bit, and they do have a tough matchup with Cleveland, kind of a slow pace. So I don't know that I'd want DeJounte Murray in cash games, but for tournaments, you can always play him. He has triple-double upside. And then the last play over 10K at point guard, Steph Curry. He gets Klay Thompson out this game, and they have a tough matchup with Utah, but Steph at 10-3, that's not a bad price tag, especially with Klay off. So for GPPs, I do not mind Steph on this slate. Actually, I don't think he'll get much ownership, and his rates with Klay off the court are substantially better. Then going down, probably the cash game play, and you can play him at point guard or shooting guard, is Donovan Mitchell at 8,600. It looks like he's off of his minutes cap and fully healthy. So I think last game he played 35, 36 minutes. He's been pretty much being his old self with 2 games back from injury. So 8,600 is just a discounted price tag in a pretty big matchup with Golden State that could be somewhat fast-paced. So I do like Donovan Mitchell, probably my favorite point guard play, and probably what I'd want to start cash game builds with. Going down, Anthony Simons at 7,300. That's also looking like a really solid potential cash game play. Portland traded CJ McCollum, So Portland's kind of shorthanded, and Simons should see all the run he can handle. He's over a fantasy point per minute. I think he's at almost 1.1 with McCollum and Lillard off the floor. So 7,300 in a fast-paced matchup with the Lakers. Yeah, that's a pretty good guard spot. Pretty good. I mean, I would even consider Simons in cash games as well. And then going down, you do have some cheap options. Davion Mitchell, I like him more if Fox is out, but it looks like Fox is going to potentially play. He's playing on Tuesday night, so unless they hold him out on the back-to-back, I would think he would play Wednesday, but we'll have to monitor that. But if Fox is out, Davion Mitchell becomes one of the best plays on the slate. So we'll have to monitor that Fox news. And then on the cheap side, you have Rajon Rondo, who is coming off the bench, but the last game he played 30 minutes and had a monster fantasy night. So they're playing the Spurs, but if he sees big minutes again, which is possible if Garland is ruled out, Garland's currently questionable. But yeah, Rondo, 4,200. He's always been a fantasy point per minute guy. It's really just a question of whether he gets the minutes or not. So we'll have to monitor ownership there. GPPs, I love them. Cash, I might. I do think the minutes are somewhat risky. I don't know that he's going to get 30 minutes regularly, but even if you see 20, 25 minutes, he can pay off a 4,200 price tag. And then the last cheap option, Dennis Smith Jr. He's probably going to be a backup, but he should get pretty big run as the backup point guard and shooting guard. He's a fantasy point per minute guy at 4,100. So I don't mind that for GPPs. That's about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one thing that is important that I didn't point out prior, but you kind of need to know at this point, is that the guys that were traded are not on the slate. So I don't know if DraftKings is going to add them later. I doubt they do. So anyone that was traded yesterday, Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Domantas Sabonis, he's a really big name that isn't. None of them are listed on their new teams. You can't use any of them. I don't know if that changes by tomorrow, like DraftKings adds them to the pool. I would doubt it, but that's something that they could always do. I think, I don't know. It just seems weird that they wouldn't have already, thrown those guys in. It's not like any of the trades came super late yesterday after they created the new contest or anything. So just a kind of odd, but something definitely to note because, there's a lot of good players. Like Domantas Sabonis would be one of the best plays on the entire slate if you could use him, but you can't.
Well,
Indiana's
not on the Wednesday slate.
Yeah, Sabonis is in Sacramento.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm all thrown off.
Yeah, he's down. And, you can't play Josh Hart.
Ooh, that could be interesting. So in my eyes, I'm treating it as none of the traded players are going to play tomorrow. That's just the way I'm treating the slate as of now. But yeah, that's definitely up in the air. All
right, let's actually rock with that just to kind of keep the continuity because it's going to be very difficult to go back and forth. So let's just assume that the traded players aren't playing.
Yeah.
That's what we'll go with. So for me at point guard, I think that you nailed it more or less. I do think I probably like DeJounte Murray a little bit more than you because I don't like the pace, but I'm not overly concerned about Cleveland because DeJounte Murray doesn't attack the basket all that much. He just kind of sits in the mid-range and Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, they're not going to affect you nearly as much in the mid-range as if you're in the restricted area. So I probably like Murray a little bit more than you. I think I agree that LeBron's probably the top spend up. And then obviously, Stephen Curry without Clay is completely fine. I have no issues with that. But as you go down a bit, I do think that Donovan Mitchell, obviously very good play, like you said. De'Aaron Fox makes a lot of sense against Minnesota. any of the Minnesota guys, which would be Patrick Beverley and D'Angelo Russell, assuming that they both played last night. I would assume that, again, they play tonight. Both of them are very good options against Sacramento. Anthony Simons, no issues at all. I think a guy that you didn't talk about that sticks out to me, or two guys, I guess, kind of in the mid tier. One, Jordan Poole. No Klay Thompson. Poole's going to take on that bigger role, under 6,000, and if that's the case, he always comes with plenty of upside. We're not really overly concerned with Utah's defense with Rudy Gobert out once again, so Jordan Poole makes a really solid option. And two, Coby White. For whatever reason, he's point guard only eligible on DraftKings, which seems kind of ridiculous. But we already know that Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball, both missing quite a bit of time. Ayo Dosunmu just went in the concussion protocol, and he's already been ruled out for tonight. So I would expect Coby White gets 30-plus minutes. He's only 5,100. And even though he's not necessarily going to play with the ball in his hands a ton, he does get plenty of shots up. Comes with a lot of upside, specifically when he is getting the 30-plus minutes. And when you have the really low price tag, 5,100, I think it's just kind of a pretty easy option. And then you talked about Rajon Rondo and Dennis Smith Jr., both very good options for the salary relief. Shifting to shooting guard, who are you looking at here?
Yeah, shooting guard. So shooting guard is not – point guard is just loaded. So shooting guard doesn't have quite as many options on a 6-game slate. You obviously can use Donovan Mitchell. He has dual eligibility, so you can slot him in at shooting guard. That's probably something you want to do just because point guard has a lot more options than shooting guard. Then going down the list, Kelly Oubre is sticking out to me at 5,600. The Hornets, with Hayward off the court, I think he's going to see a pretty big bump in minutes, and they seem to tighten their rotation when they lose one of their starters. So Hayward being out could be a big bump for Oubre, priced at 5,600. He's had some really high usage and high fantasy point per minute rates this year. I think he's over a fantasy point per minute guy and could see mid-30s minutes tonight. So I do like that 5,600 price tag on Oubre. And then Davion Mitchell, again, he can be slotted in at shooting guard. Going down the list, Ellaby on Portland, he's priced at 4,400, so the price is coming up, but he should start, and I'm curious to see how the game shakes out on Tuesday night with Portland. We're recording this before that game ends, but I want to see he'll start, and I want to see how many minutes he gets. He's around a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy, so not the greatest producer, but if he's going to be getting big minutes with a lot of usage available on Portland, I don't mind that as a value option at shooting guard. And then going down, looking at Portland again, you have Ben McLemore, priced at 4,300. He should start at shooting guard for Portland, and I'm expecting 30-ish minutes. And he's kind of a gunner, but if he gets hot, I mean, he can really shoot, like hoist up threes. And I don't know. I've watched Ben McLemore play quite a bit over the last couple years, and he has games where he looks really good and is just chucking. So I don't mind Ben McLemore. Even in cash games, I really don't mind it. I think his minutes are pretty solidified. Yeah, it's a pretty weak position. That's really the main options I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with Ellaby and McLemore. I'm shocked that Ellaby's price tag is above McLemore's at this point. Yesterday, I think McLemore's was like 200 above it, so nothing insane, and Ellaby's is only 100 higher. Of the two, I think I prefer McLemore just because if his three is falling, he'll throw up 15 in a game. Dude will just shoot, and that's kind of what you're looking for. I do think that both of them are viable. Going back up to the top, I really like Zach LaVine. He gets a really good matchup against Charlotte. The matchup's going to be fast-paced. We already know Dosunmu is out. You don't have Lonzo. You don't have Alex Caruso. So LaVine still shouldering a lot of the roles. I think he's going to be more of a facilitator in this type of game. We saw him have 8 assists in his last game. Obviously can post, 30 plus points against anyone, especially a team like Charlotte. So I do think that 9,100 is creeping up there a little bit much, but I don't really have too many issues with him. Shifting down, the next guy that I would probably talk about would be Gary Trent Jr. This is like the weirdest thing ever. Gary Trent Jr. has been on absolute fire where he's just a scoring machine. But if you look at his game log, he just keeps going against these defenses that are absolutely atrocious against shooting guards. He has hit like the point of the season where this is just a shooting guard's dream outside of the one matchup against Chicago, where he dropped 32 real life points, struggled against them a little bit in his next one. But outside of that, he's played Charlotte, Miami twice, or Charlotte twice, actually, Miami twice, and Atlanta twice. And those are 3 of the worst teams in the NBA, not only against scoring shooting guards, but at defending the 3 via shooting guards as well. So the big news here is he gets a matchup against Oklahoma City, who another team that really can't stop shooting guards and gives up a ton of threes. I think he dropped 40 fantasy points against them in their first matchup, something like that. And he's only 6,500. Obviously, when talking about Gary Trent Jr. and a healthy Toronto team, only might not be the right word to say, because 6,500 is pretty expensive. With that being said, Nick Nurse has his rotations where he'll just play guys 40 minutes and not even slightly care about it. So I do think that Gary Trent Jr. is a very viable option. Shifting down, I completely agree with Kelly Oubre. I did want to kind of get on here to say that I do agree with that, because he's such a good play for his price tag. The dude loves scoring. He's really good at it. Gordon Hayward out. You have the other small forwards out as well. Jaden McDaniels, no Book Knight, no Cody Martin. So there's no one to take Kelly Oubre's minutes at this point. And if he gets 30, 35 minutes, he's just way too cheap at 5,800. I think the only guy that I add here would be Trey Mann. He's playing bigger minutes for the Oklahoma City Thunder. His price is now up at 4,900. So not necessarily a lock anymore. It's not like he's this dominant point per minute fantasy option or anything. But when you look at how much he's been shooting, only 13 in his last game, but 18 and 17 field goal attempts in the 2 before that. And, Toronto isn't necessarily an elite matchup, but it's not one that I'm going to even slightly shy away from. You know what I mean? So I do think that Trey Mann is reasonable. The big issue is that, you have CJ Ellaby and Ben McLemore sitting right below him. So you probably aren't going to click the Trey Mann button, but I do think that he's viable in tournaments. We can move to small forward. Obviously, we have LeBron up top. We both agree that he's a very good play. I feel like his guard forward dual eligibility just makes him that much better because it's so easy to fit him into your lineups. But what else are you looking at small forward here?
Yeah, LeBron, obviously, I love. Going down, another kind of mid-range high spend up I like is Miles Bridges at 7,800. He gets big minutes, and with Charlotte kind of shorthanded with a couple injuries and Hayward out, I mean, those minutes become even more solidified. So you could be looking at, close to 40 minutes from Bridges against Chicago. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy, so he just feels pretty safe. The price tag's probably appropriate at 7,800, but he's just safe. And I feel like that game's going to be really high scoring. So I do like Bridges at 7,800. Going down, I don't know what to make of Andrew Wiggins. He's at 6,300, so the price is discounted a little bit. And with Clay out, I like it. I don't play Wiggins very often, but I might make an exception tomorrow. That price tag just looks a little too cheap with Clay sitting out. I don't know if I'd get there in cash. I might, but for GPPs, I do like Andrew Wiggins at 6,300. Lou Dort, just 100 less at 6,200. He's just a GPP option, but I don't mind it because Dort is playing huge minutes if they can keep the game competitive. So if this game with Toronto stays close, I like Dort as kind of a bring back option for in GPPs. If you're playing Van Vliet or Siakam, I like pairing Dort with them because Dort can see 37 minutes and he does see quite a usage boost with Shai off the floor. And then moving down, again, you have Oubre, we already discussed. Kenrich Williams played big minutes his last game. He does come off the bench, but he's basically acting as the sixth man on OKC and closing out almost second quarter and fourth quarter. So he's getting close to 30 minutes, at least the last game. Not sure those minutes are totally solidified, but he's a pretty decent fantasy point per minute producer. And at 4,400, if he's going to see 25 to 30 minutes, I don't mind that at 4,400. But yeah, small forward, there's not that many options on the slate as it's typical. It's usually a pretty weak position. So that's pretty much it. Ellaby, again, dual eligibility. You can slot him in at small forward as well, and Macklemore as well. So those are options with both guard and forward eligibility, making them a little easier to fit in your lineups.
Yeah, I completely agree. Miles Bridges just seems he seems like such an elite play because Chicago's so bad against both forward spots, but really they're just truly terrible against power forwards, which obviously is what Miles Bridges plays. I think that's another thing that we didn't say about Kelly Oubre, but he's going to slot into the small forward role, and Chicago's just really bad against small forwards. So kind of adds to both of them. I agree with Wiggins. I don't ever know what to make of him, and I feel like I've played him like legit 2 times on this year, and he comes with plenty of upside. I'm cool with it. I partially agree with Lou Dort. I actually am completely fine with Dort in cash games, and the only reason I feel that way is because it's very clear that he's taking on just a massive offensive role with no Gilgeous-Alexander. And if Josh Giddey's limited to 30 minutes, it's not like Lou Dort is the beneficiary of the minutes, but Lou Dort will be the beneficiary of whenever Giddey probably isn't on the floor. His role is just going to increase more. And kind of a weird spot because it's not like Giddey's this super offensive guy. So it's not like all of the sudden Giddey's going to steal Dort's stuff and then Giddey leaves, Dort gets everything. But he could get upwards of 20 shots again. His last game, he had 21, 12 threes. And obviously can add steals, blocks, rebounds, and assists. So Dort, I think, is a really, really good option. You basically outlined everything I was thinking. The only guy that I guess I would add would be Cedi Osman. If you just want a guy that if his shot's falling, he's going to outproduce his price tag, Osman's your guy. If his shot isn't falling, there's almost no way that he beats his price. And then, like you said about Kenrich Williams, the big thing, and I absolutely can't stand Oklahoma City with this weird stuff that they're rocking, but in their last game, they gave Derek Favors minutes over Diakite. One of the two it has the potential, at least, to help their team or their rotation in the future. The other one's Derek Favors, who by playing doesn't gain any trade value. Yet Oklahoma City decided that they wanted to run him out there like crazy. Kind of the same with Kenrich Williams. The weird thing is that Oklahoma City said that they want a first for him. I don't care how good he plays before the trade deadline. No one is trading a first for him. But Oklahoma City can try to increase his value by giving him 30 minutes. And since we already know that they're looking to trade him, it's kind of a guy that does make sense to get the extra playing time. Shifting to power forward now. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, there's a couple good spend up options in DeMar DeRozan, who has just been dominating of late. His price is up there, 9,600, but you're getting a matchup, one of the best matchups against Charlotte. Should be really high scoring game, and DeRozan's playing big minutes and just dominating. It seems like he's always at 45, 50 fantasy points of late. So I don't mind 9,600. It might be hard to fit him in if you're going LeBron in cash games, but I mean, DeRozan's a fine play. And then Siakam's a play I've just been playing a ton of lately. I think everyone has. His minutes are just through the roof. I mean, he's playing 40 minutes every night at 9,400. The price tag keeps going up slightly, but I mean, if you're getting 40 minutes out of Siakam against OKC, there's just such a high floor. And so, I mean, he's just so safe. The only way he really fails is when he gets in foul trouble, which happens occasionally. But yeah, it's just 9,400 is a decent tag for Siakam. Going down. So I'm trying to figure out what to make of Kevin Love. It looks like his minutes are trending up. Seems like he's taking some of Mobley's minutes, and he is priced up now, 7,100. But I mean, his fantasy rates are crazy. I mean, he's at like 1.4 fantasy points per minute, which is elite. I mean, you're talking superstar level fantasy point per minute rates. So if you're at 1.4, if he's going to get 28 to 30 minutes, even at 7,100, he looks like a really good play against the Spurs. Now, he does come off the bench, but it looks like they want to give him decent minutes. So if that's the case, I think I'm gonna play him in GPPs, and hopefully they don't cut his minutes. But yeah, I like him. Going down, you have Bazley again. The Bazley price is creeping up. He's at 5,600. He's a decent mid-range play. He's been getting 35 plus minutes the last few games. So if looks like they're trying to see what they have in Bazley, or maybe they're showcasing him. I'm not sure, but he's been getting 35 minutes, and he's not a great fantasy point per minute producer, but 0.85 fantasy points per minute. I mean, he's still has some value left, even at a 5,600 price tag. And then going down, probably my favorite kind of lower value play. Well, actually, there's two. So PJ Washington at 4,900. I think he's going to see some more minutes. He plays backup center, but he could also get some power forward minutes alongside Plumlee. So if you look at his game log, he's had a couple of games where his minutes are cut short, but some of those he was in foul trouble. So I do think we see more of the 28 to 30 minutes out of PJ Washington, and he's close to a fantasy point per minute producer. So 4,900, I like that tag. I'm hoping he's somewhat under-owned, and I'll try to get overweight in GPPs. And then going down, another value option is Winslow at 4,500. So he was on the Tuesday slate just priced at the minimum 3K, and looks like DraftKings raised his price 1,500. I still don't think that's going to be enough of a bump he is starting on Tuesday night. I don't know how that game ended up, but if he's going to play like 28 to 30 minutes, he's a fantasy point per minute guy. So 4,500 still way too cheap in a really good matchup against the Lakers that should be pretty high scoring. Neither team plays much defense. So I do like Winslow as a great cash option, and probably one of my favorite value options on the slate.
Yeah. There's not much to add, if we're going to be honest. You nailed basically everything that I'm thinking. Kevin Love and higher, I like all four of those. Pascal Siakam, probably my favorite of the group. I've liked Siakam for years now. I've thought that he's been way underrated. Now it's really nice that he's getting his time to shine. Drop down, Bazley's the next big guy there. He's locked into big minutes because Oklahoma City has literally nobody. And, Bazley's actually playing some minutes at center and such. So a really good option there. PJ Washington, Justice Winslow, two cheaper guys that you can use. The only guy that I think I would add here, and kind of depends on a little bit, and I didn't actually get to see tonight. The game hasn't started yet. It's the Lakers against Milwaukee. But Trevor Ariza started on the 5th against the New York Knicks, played 35 minutes in that game. He started for Stanley Johnson. I didn't see the starting lineup for last night, so I don't actually know at this point whether Ariza's starting again or not.
It looks like Ariza started.
Oh, you did? Okay.
On Tuesday, he's starting. Yeah, just saw that.
Cool. So Ariza's starting. I'm assuming his minutes are going to be at least similar, and he's well under 4,000. So assuming he starts again tonight, just too cheap of a price tag. He'll probably be one of the better plays on the slate, or I guess one of the better salary relief options on the slate. We can shift over to center. Who are you looking at here? Because I feel like for this entire slate, like outside of basically LeBron, we have a bunch of really good spend ups, but none of them that are like over 10,000. I guess like DeJounte Murray, but even he, I guess you could like make a case for other guys in significantly better matchups over him. So like outside of LeBron, it feels like everyone's in like the not between 9 and 10 range. But who are you looking at for center?
Yeah, so Anthony Davis is priced over 10K. So I'm guessing someone on the Lakers is going to sit tomorrow just because it's a back-to-back. I'm going to guess it's either LeBron or AD. I don't know who, but just my guess. But assuming they play, LeBron probably is going to be very high owned, I would think, and Davis might see a slight ownership discount. So it might be a decent pivot playing Davis instead of LeBron in some of your tournament lineups. And at 10-100, Davis is playing huge minutes. I mean, he's been seeing close to 40 minutes right away. And he just came off an injury, like I think a week and a half ago. But he's seeing big minutes. They're in win now mode, and they're playing a bad Portland team. So 80 at 10-100, I like him for GPPs. Karl Anthony Towns gets a really nice matchup with Sacramento. He's priced at 9,700. So you're not getting much of a discount, but he does get a nice matchup, and Towns always has the upside. Center's just loaded. I mean, you have Vucevic at 9,500, who's also just been crushing, and they're getting a matchup with Charlotte in a fast-paced game. The problem with Chicago is just they have 3 great spend-up options, and I just never know who to play on a given slate. So like it seems like 2 of them almost always do pretty well, but I just have trouble in GPPs figuring it out, and I just kind of punt and usually just play like either whoever fits a weak position or whoever's cheapest. So Vucevic never seems to get there because he's always at center, and there's so many options at center, I can never really get to him. And then going down the list, you have Nurkic priced at 8,200, which is a pretty good tag. I mean, he's got crazy upside, and with all these guys out, the usage, the ball should flow through Nurkic. They should be giving it to him in the post. It's a question of minutes. I mean, if the game stays close, I would think he'll get 32 to 34 minutes. So 8,200. He's at 1.4 fantasy points per minute without Powell, Lillard, and McCollum. So that's a pretty good rate. So I mean, he's got just crazy upside at 8,200 tag against the Lakers. And then going down, we already touched on Kevin Love and PJ Washington. Azubuike is starting for Utah over Whiteside lately. We'll need to monitor that. But he's been playing pretty well, getting 25-ish minutes, maybe more. And he seems to be producing. He's a good rebounder, at least from what I've seen the last couple games. So he can pay off that 4,000 price tag. If for some reason Whiteside starts, we would probably want to play a ton of Hassan Whiteside at 5,400. So we'll need to keep an eye out for that lineup. I don't think Whiteside would start, but you never know. So we'll need to keep an eye on that. And then all the way down, if you're looking for a real punt play, Trendon Watford at 3,100, just with Portland so depleted. he should get 20-ish minutes, and he's a pretty good fantasy producer. He's close to a fantasy point per minute, actually. So if you can project him to get 20-ish minutes, he's going to look good at a 3,100 price tag. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Again, on very similar wavelengths for center. I think my favorite spend up, it's tough. My favorite spend up is still Pascal Siakam, but at the pure center, I think Vucevic is probably the guy. I agree. Nurkic, the ceiling for his price tag is just ridiculous. Like, especially with how much he's going to be touching the ball with kind of no one on the offense at this point. You know, obviously it runs through Anthony Simons, but Nurkic is still seeing a much larger role, more shot attempts, etc. I do think Jared Allen, if you want to take that shot, is fine at 8,100. That's specifically GPPs. I do like the matchup against Jakob Poole, who really keeps opposing centers near the basket. Shifting down, Mason Plumlee at 5,500. He saw 28 minutes. I think with all the small forwards out, it's going to kind of have an effect to the point where PJ Washington's going to play more power forward. Miles Bridges either moves to small forward or they keep Oubre, and Mason Plumlee probably is relatively safe for 25 plus minutes. He's only 5,500, so the upside should be there. I completely agree on the whole Utah situation. I really liked Udoka Azubuike at Kansas when he played there. He looked really good. I thought he, could be a decent option in the NBA, but I guess that's kind of the mold that Utah goes with. Rudy Gobert, really good rebounder, good shot blocker, can't shoot. Hassan Whiteside, same exact mold. Azubuike, same exact mold. So I guess it makes sense, and it also makes sense that he's actually performing well in Utah because you're learning under two guys that literally play the exact same way as you that have been doing it at a high level in the NBA. So whoever's starting does make complete sense there. And then, if you want to go Watford, I have no problems with someone like that in GPPs. I guess the only other guy that I would consider is Mamadi Diakite. That makes you want to say the D twice. If he's starting again, feel free to use him. He's really solid on the points per minute. He does come with a bit of risk, but also comes with, outstanding upside for only 3,800. But I would guess that they're going to start Derek Favors again for this weird showcase that they're doing, as if literally anyone wants to trade for Derek Favors at this point in his career. But Diakite is reasonable, if he's starting.
Yeah, Favors saw like 26 minutes the last game, so if Favors starts, he might be an option. Favors might be an option if he starts, if he's going to get that kind of minutes, but
he just isn't good. Like if he gets 27 minutes, the thing about Favors is that he can legit drop 30 fantasy points, 35 fantasy points. Yeah, or he could drop 5.
He was like a fantasy point per minute guy. Like he crushed on other teams, but for some reason on OKC he just hasn't been producing. So
I agree with that. Yeah. That about does it for what we got for you guys for tonight. Again, if you enjoy the video, go ahead, give us a thumbs up, drop any comments you have below. We'll try to be in throughout the day to answer them. Thank you for watching, and good luck on the slate.